for asking everyone to be seated.
Yes. Next time I'll be like the headmistress.
Yes,
I'll say
yes,
it
I think
with
so.
a different
Yes,
tone.
now you will have to be. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Pascal Dio. I am the head of the Venice production bridge. And I am particularly glad to host, together with the Arab Cinema Center and Alaa. I wish him, because as you know, he's not here, so I wish him a prompt recovery. And to talk about Arab talents. As you probably know, in a former life, I have been working as the head of the Dubai film market. And since that time, I have found out that I have always had one part of my heart, which was still in the region. And I have been following everything for many years now. And I am glad, and I see familiar faces here who have been supporting the Venice production bridge for many years now. And so I just wanted to thank you. And I think I will hand over the microphone to Raya. And we will speak about Arab talents. And honestly, I would be ready to do anything to help Arab talents to go internationally, because they deserved it, really. Thank you very much.
Grazie Pascal, puisqu'on est en Italie. I will now invite our panelists for this second panel. We'll start with you, Wayne, because you're first row. Wayne Borg, Managing Director of NEOM. I'll call you when I see you. Roua Madani is Director of Development at Film AlUla. The lovely Dora Bouchoucha is here with us tonight, an eminent producer regionally and internationally, representing Nomadis today. Is that how we pronounce it? Nomadis? Nomadis. Comment allez-vous? And Mohamed Hefzy, producer, screenwriter, and film critic. So we say golden time today because it's a great time for emerging talent from our region, all across. You know, we're talking about a very big region, the Arab world. You know, from Tunisia to Saudi, from Egypt to Lebanon, to all across a very big, diversified region of film lovers. And at the moment, we are seeing a lot of attention on our talent, and we are here to speak about that. We're also going to speak about the emergence of Arab talent in Hollywood, and we are mentioning Moon Knight today because Hefzy is with us, and with his production partners and directors, they quite successfully launched all those TV series on the streaming market. Dora has a film in Orizzonti and has had movies in festivals for years. AlUla creates. We're going to talk about all these details. NEOM. We are going to talk today about not only our own talent shining in the region and abroad, but also about how we can support them. So thank you guys for being here, first of all, and I hope you're having a good festival. I'll start with Roua and AlUla Creates, which is a title I really love because, you know, creativity is what we want to champion in the region. Tell us about what AlUla Creates is and what the initiative goes for.
So AlUla Create, it's a program that, our initiative that it combine and mix and between two regions, like the Arab region and the international. And also it's combined two kind of art. It's this year we choose to combine fashion and film. And it's kind of how can the international support the Arab talents, and also to mix this kind of art and talent.
Dora, you've always championed the regional talent, even before it was a trending thing. It's always been your thing to kind of identify and champion them. We've had Kauthar Ben Hania nominated for an Oscar a couple of years ago, Nadine Labake before her. You know, we are seeing Arabic names being nominated for big awards. How amazing is it for you that this is finally happening? And what's usually your criteria to identify what talent is?
Thank you. I'm happy to hear that.
Do you have your microphone around you somewhere?
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that that the world is interested in Arab talents. I was interested in Arab talents and African talents for years because I could see that there was talent.
Yeah.
Now the world is seeing that the Arab world has talents. Arab cinemas is flourishing. I mean, are flourishing, and it's a very difficult question to say how. Well, I've started a lab, a workshop for not accompanying young filmmakers from the continent. And we had more than 250 people now. We've been doing it for almost 25 years, which is a long time. And Kauthar was in it, Hind Boujam'a, many from the sub-Saharan Africa, many Egyptians, many Lebanese. And we could see that these young filmmakers really, really have an innovative vision to the world, probably not up to the expectations of what the West expect from us. But we could see at that time that talent is there. It took time to see it, but today we are very happy because in the last Cannes Film Festival we had 14 films all in all, Arab and Africans. A bit less here, but you know, Arab cinemas, because I cannot say Arab cinema. Arab cinemas are really, really, really flourishing. So what are the criteria? I remember when I started in the business, because I come from literature, the text for me is extremely important. And I could see that, in our countries, the director used to be the producer, sometimes the managing director, everything. And they thought they could solve the problems on the set, which is really impossible, when we know how much 5 minutes costs. And so when I started reading scripts to see whether, sometimes we received scripts that are not at all professionally valid, but there was a vision of the world. There is something freer than something not formative. And we could see that there is talent. This is how, in terms of production, I really, really, even the guy or the woman is extremely talented. If I see that we cannot get along, I won't go. So but I don't produce everybody, I just accompany people, just like that. I don't know if I have answered your question.
And more, thank you.
Thank you.
Hefzy, I want to ask if it's getting easier in the last few years with the emergence of course, the streamers and the Netflix and Disney Plus. Did that encourage the diversity in your experience?
Well, let me start by saying that I think that Arab talents have always been there. I mean, there's been really a lot of Arab talent 30 years ago and 40 years ago. Just there was no platform where these talents could really use to tell their stories and to flourish. And I think what's happening now is that the platforms are being set up. They've started to, when you really think about when our Arab talent began to get recognized internationally, you kind of have to look back to the emergence of Arab festivals, and of course there's always been Carthage, there's always been Cairo, but really in the last 15 years there's been kind of a lot of resources put into creating some Arab festivals that really help those talents to complete their films, to showcase these talents, to showcase their films. Even a lot of national film centers in the Arab world that have helped talents at international festivals, institutions that have helped talents even travel to international festivals, etc. So I think what's happening is that the talent now is being recognized and also given a chance to be a little bit more polished, because I think there was a lot of raw talent, and I could see this, when I started out in the industry more than 20 years ago. I could see a lot of raw talent that needed polishing, that needed a platform as well. And I think that what these festivals and what these institutions, also like AlUla and NEOM and the DFI and others are doing, is that they're helping these talents to become more polished and to get the essential, also to have more of an exchange exchange with international institutions and platforms and filmmakers and festivals where we're starting to talk the same language. We're starting to understand more how to travel, how to tell stories and try to reach a wider audience, how to get more, how to lobby, for example, with sales agents, with festivals, and how to use a publicist well in a festival. So these are skills which we didn't have when we look at the great filmmakers of, for example, in Egypt, when you look at people like Mohamed and Khairi Bshara and others who I think, in terms of talent, enormous, great stories, but didn't really, if they had these platforms today, and if they had the exposure and the connections that Arab filmmakers enjoy today with other international counterparts, I think this would have put them on the map internationally, for example. And the same for a lot of filmmakers in North Africa and in other places in the Arab world. So this is a great time to be an Arab talent. And by the way, when I say talent, and this is something that
it's not only actors.
It's not only actors, and
or
it's not
directors.
only,
Yeah.
I mean, Dora Bouchoucha to me is a talent.
Yes.
She's
the talent.
She is a producer, and producers are talents. And sometimes people don't recognize producers as talents. But really, I'm not talking about myself necessarily, although I think I'm talented. But I'm talking about the idea that I love this phrase. We accompany filmmakers, and this is we don't produce filmmakers. We're not. It is their work with other people. It's collective, and the producer's role is really sometimes just to make sure that everybody is going until the last breath. And producers don't create magic; they don't have a magic formula. It's really just, this is a very good way to put it. So we're very lucky to be living in this time. I think. Also, one last point, because I know I don't want to talk too much, but we're talking about talents that are being recognized internationally. What I'm also noticing is that a lot of Arab talents are being recognized among their counterparts in different countries of the Arab world. So we're seeing more Arab collaboration creatively, actors, filmmakers, cinematographers. I will sometimes be looking for an editor, and I will call Dora, or I will call Roua, and I will say, guys, can you recommend someone? This is happening more and more, and this didn't used to happen 10 years ago. So it's an interesting time, and I think that it's only hopefully going to get better, Yanni.
I'll ask my question that you didn't answer later on. It's okay. About the streamers, but this was even more interesting. Yeah. Because I think we should continue with NEOM and with AlUla Creates and the support that's been given to the talent themselves. As Mo said, the polishing of the talent, their learning, the academy, the workshop, the master classes. It is so important natively.
Yeah, and it's really about the infrastructure we provide to support what everyone's talking about. It's the talent development from writing right through to distribution, and by infrastructure I mean it's the learning institutions, it's the entry point for talent. We talk about NEOM being the gateway for the region's industry. How we can create the consistency of opportunities of on-the-job training, vocational learning. All aspects of what industry requires. It's not just about actors, producers, writers, but as we talked in an earlier session, it's gaffers, it's electricians, it's carpenters, it's hair and makeup, it's set design. And I think for the first time now, because the industry is starting to, I think, reinvigorate, and with the focus particularly in Saudi Arabia, the young people are seeing career prospects and can see, you know, a career in the industry, whereas historically they couldn't see that. You know, their parental pressure would suggest that this was not a serious industry or a viable career option. Whereas what we're trying to sort of, you know, demonstrate is through, you know, from the learning process right through the on-the-job training with local, regional, and international productions, the opportunities are there. And the connection and that knowledge transfer are also there.
Roua, let's talk about that and Film AlUla having AlUla Creates, but other initiatives as well that, you know, as we said, don't only support actors and filmmakers and the, you know, and the more known professions in the film industry, but all of them in a diversity.
Yeah, as Wayne, he mentioned, like AlUla also supporting all kind of aspect like in the film industry and building the infrastructure for that. By training, by shadowing program, by even doing a lot of casting through and open the opportunity for those talents to come. And also we have AlUla Create. We are doing a lot of partnership with other entities like Red Sea Lodge and having these programs. Also we are having like writing boot camps and things like that. Many trainings and many opportunities it's open. And also we are speaking about the talents as a young generation, but surprisingly, when we do casting, we have like 60 years old and 70 years old woman or a man. They come for the casting and they are like happy to be part of one of those content or series or films happening. And when you ask them, when did you figure that you want to do that? They said like, we have it in mind, but we never felt like it's an option for us to do that. Today, it's an option for them to be part of this kind of industry. So it's open for all kind of talents, from acting, directing, and even technical people.
Mo mentioned visibility, and it's very important to be visible in film festivals and, you know, with publicists and with international producers, etc. What can we do more for visibility? Maybe Dora can also answer that, you know, to be visible as an industry, as a group of talent.
I totally agree with what Moh was saying about what we lacked so far. We had talents, really. You mentioned, you know, I'm not going to mention Shaheen, Mufida Tletli, Nouri Bouzid, you know, we had, you know, real, but
we have historic cinematic talent.
We didn't have the professional platform to make it, you know, to make visible. And I think the most important thing to do is to work on changing the perception of the decision makers worldwide. For example, of course, Arab talents deserve, like any talent deserve, to be visible. What I would like to say is our main concern today is to change a little bit the prism that is, our expectations when we make films in the region are not necessarily up to the standards or in accordance with the perception expected from us. And that's the most important thing, I think. Of course, we can pay publicists, we can do everything you want, but that's the main thing.
What do you want to add to that? And also the fact that, now there's interest in, Korean cinema, now there's interest in Asian cinema more, and there's interest in Middle Eastern cinema more. Does that also increase that kind of visibility that we can have, because it's no longer focused on just one region and Hollywood?
Well, okay. So, I mean, if you look back at the past, say, 30 years, you'll find that every region kind of had its moment. There was Chinese cinema, which actually the Venice Film Festival was very instrumental in Cannes to a big extent in pushing Chinese cinema to the mainstream and to reach, even to reach audiences in America, as far as which is very difficult 30 years ago for Americans to watch subtitled films or films that are from outside of the English-speaking world. The Latin Americans, again, 20 years ago or something, they had great resurgence. The same for the Koreans, maybe in the past 5-10 years. And so I think really Arab cinema really deserves its moment, and I think Arab cinema will have its moment. And I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. It's two things really. It's the work itself. It's what are the films. It's really the films and the TV series and the work that these people are doing. But it's not enough just to do great work, and that's why I was talking about the platforms. That's why I was talking about also the perception, which Dora was pointing to, is what do Western programmers, for example, expect from Arab films? I think that's a question that a lot of filmmakers sometimes spend maybe too much time trying to answer. Is like, what does a Western programmer of an A festival look for in an Arab film?
I think also, you look at the Koreans, you go to Korea, they don't care about the West. They make content for Korea. Yeah. And I think that's the opportunity, the Arab world, make content, whether it's film or television, for your audiences. You have a massive marketplace. And I think, now that you're seeing some of the big production companies, Telfaz, for example, and their relationship with Netflix, I think Netflix and Amazon, all these guys are realizing that they don't have to make content for other parts of the world from here. There's a critical mass of this region to make it viable and meet the needs of that marketplace.
And we're seeing more and more local productions being high in box office numbers, and this is something that's shifted also in recent years. The local films being sometimes even more popular than the Hollywood ones.
What I've noticed is that in the last decade, we do a lot of labs, in Doha, in DFI, in Ouagadougou, Ouaga Film Lab, And what I've noticed is that the talents, they co-produce. So we have many more South-South co-productions. They get together. What you're saying, there is really this cohesion now, because there is a common ground, whether we like it or not. I mean, it's much easier. It's much, much, much easier. And the expectations are ours. And it's very important. As you said, in Korea, in India, in Nigeria, I'm not talking about quality, but they don't care. They don't care. And maybe this is what it's starting in Egypt. You have films that that really are doing very well, but nobody is trying to put them in international. Really,
the Egyptian film industry has worked like the Bollywood film industry for many years, where it's self-sufficient.
And I think that's the maturity and the confidence that you have to go at it, to tell the stories. Not necessarily, okay, it's great to project those stories and promote culture globally, but ultimately what this industry is the glue of societies. It reflects back, and that should be the focus first and foremost. And if it resonates beyond that and it travels, fantastic. But you must always speak to your audience first and foremost. And I think the minute you start to compromise on that, I think you end up with the challenges.
Yeah, I would like I add something. For example, some films that we make, and they are very successful in Europe. And when we go back home, they said, oh, this is for Europe. This is for France. This is for... And some other films that do very well in the countries. And when we try to put them international, they say, they're not enough universal. We are it's still going on. They're still going on. Yeah.
How do you filter, Roua, for instance, the talent? You've got the talented ones that are hesitant to put themselves out there, and you have the ones that want to put themselves out there but don't particularly have the talent. How do you narrow it down? How do you know who to put where?
Honestly, it's a very hard job, because some people, they know how to present themselves in a certain area, but truly they don't have the talent. And some, as you said, they are totally in the shadow, but they have like an amazing talent. So I think by doing a lot of those programs that we take those talent kind of out of the shells to show their talents. And sometimes we take them stage by stage or step by step. So we can't do like those big programs and put them totally on the light. Sometimes it could be shadowing program, it could be training program small, and then you try and you can figure where you can put them. And for example, the shadowing program, they do shadowing program on all departments. And then you see where you can fit them. Because sometimes someone who said like, he is a great photographer, but he's not. He could be a great producer, for example, or a great director or whatever. I just want to comment on the content thing, because one of the Saudi movie now, they are higher in the box office more than the international movies. And also Netflix now, they are producing the original Saudi content. And that's mean exactly what Wayne, he was saying, that we need to concentrate on all our own stories.
Wayne, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, discovering talent and finding those rough diamonds and whatnot. For us, we have a major program with the National Film and Television School, for example, in the UK, where we put everybody through a basic certificate program, because no one's, they're not all going to know which area of specialty stream they want to go into, and that gives them a broad understanding, and we start to understand their talent. And sometimes they haven't got it, and you've got to be upfront with them and put them out of their misery. But where there is the talent, it's to help guide them and mentor them and stream them into their, maybe one guy wants to be a focus puller, another guy wants to focus on set design or continuity, and allow them then to specialize over time. So, we've put through just over 300 young Saudis, through initial training, and then subsequently attached to productions. And they've all gone on to gain full-time employment. So it is about how you provide that structured support, that infrastructure that I described.
I am often asked, how can I do like you? And my answer is always, find your passion, find your core. The job in television is not only hosting. It's directors, it's producers, it's line managers.
Editors,
It's editors, and just find your passion. Dora and Mo, are you passionate about finding those, young emerging talents and coaching them? And how do you usually, how is your radar to them?
Well, I think we're both blessed as that we really get a lot of a big influx of scripts and people and writers and directors that at least I speak about myself, and I'm sure it's the same with Dora, that we meet them at festivals, they're writing all the time, they're calling all the time. So filtering the ones you want to work with, yes, that's maybe the challenge, is knowing who has a story or who has a journey that you want to embark with on. That is more difficult. But for me, yes, I always look for, if you look at maybe I don't know how many films I've produced, but I would say at least maybe 50% were first films, maybe 65% were first or second films. So it's a natural instinct to want to work with emerging talent or with new talent. I think Dora is the same, by the way. I mean, you've worked with a lot of
It's the same, yeah. I mean, without passion, you cannot do this job. First of all,
You cannot do anything.
I mean, anything you do, if you don't do it with passion, it's not only about films. For example, I read a script, Egyptian, and I would call, for example, Mohamed Hefzy and say, I read a fantastic script, you should read it. And he would read it right away. And we'd call and say, let's do it. And without having anything, we just embark on, it's very instinctive. You want to, I've been following a girl that I met in Sud Écriture 7 years ago from Rwanda. And now she is for 7 years. And now she will be shooting in February. It's an amazing script. And during these 7 years, she learned a lot. She learned how to cast a producer in Europe. She learned everything. It's amazing. So that process is amazing and passionate, yes.
What are the challenges that we are all still facing in the cinema industry in the region, and how do you see the next 5 years, all of you?
So I just wanted, since this panel is about Arab talents regionally and internationally, I want to go back to this idea of what, because how do we expose our talents? It's really, I mean, through film festivals is probably the easiest way, right? I mean, most of the Arab talents that have been exposed internationally have come out through big festivals. And yet, when you look at what festival programmers have been programming from Arab films, it's really mostly art house films. Now, can you say the same thing about Korean cinema? Or Latin American cinema? Or to a certain extent, no. Because, so I feel like there's come to be certain expectations from some cinematic regions of certain types of films, or specifically art house films, which are very hard to, if you're talking about mass audiences, if you're talking about big theatrical releases internationally, etc., it's very hard to release art house films. And with the exception of maybe France, very few countries in the world, and that includes Europe, are open to art house cinema from all over the world. And so maybe we need also a little bit of diversity in the cinema we are trying to put out there. And I think diversity is a very important word. And yes, and that includes genre cinema, that includes, I know comedies don't travel easily because of the cultural sensitivity, except for maybe, the only exception I can think of is Egyptian films playing very well in the Gulf, for example. But otherwise, I think that's really important to change that perception that only art house cinema can come out of, big festivals for the Arab world. And I think once that happens, I think it's going to open the door for more distributors to want to take a risk on some of these films.
I think you're talking about platforms. I'm a bit worried because, as you said, I'm an old school. I mean, it's good to have platforms, but for a filmmaker to make a film and not to sit at a big screen, in a cinemas, it's a bit still. I don't know how this will evolve, but I wanted to add something. When there is a talent, or there are talents in the region, and everybody's, looking for that talent, and you can see him hopping from one lab to another, from one festival to the other, and I keep telling them, please, there is a moment to stop. And of course, it's very tempting to go and to meet people, but there is a moment where they should stop. Murad, we are producing a very talented guy, extremely talented. I keep calling him every week. Stop it, Murad. He said, yeah, I'm sick now. I'm not going anywhere. Yeah, I really tell them not to do that.
Save it for the promotion of the film.
Yeah.
I agree with Mo. I think the region's coming into a golden period. Yes. There's so much focus on the industry by governments, the investment. I think the challenge is to ensure that investment is directed correctly, and that there's some semblance of structure and talent know where to access, and that they can go on a journey. And I think that's the key, that they don't end up in a loop or get discarded. So, and again, I think as we're at that inflection point where we are seeing some real infrastructure investment for the first time in the region. I talked earlier about the industry in the region sort of suffers from its fragmentation, and the ability to bring talent, decision makers, creatives in one place, I think is critical, because I think that disbursement, that scatteredness has really hampered the progress of the industry compared to other regions. So again, sort of putting the NEOM spin on this is that's where we see the opportunities is to create that focal point for collaboration, for industry, for creatives, and for talent.
you know, for filmmakers, producers, to have our film selected in festivals like Venice, Cannes, Berlin, Toronto, it's really, you work hard for it.
Yes.
But I would like to say something. I think you're talking about the region, as long as we depend on the validation of these far away for us, I mean far away, not the distance, but to get the validation from these festivals. And as long as you don't have real good film critics for the region, I think we have to have our, you know, and exchange between festivals. Don't you agree?
I agree.
Of course.
And I think, again, and that comes back to the confidence. And, you know, we're blessed with now with the Red Sea Film Festival. You know, it's an incredible, powerful force in the region and, you know, led by a great team. And it has... It has the currency, it has, you know, the standing within the region, but also internationally. And I think that's critical, and that creates the bridge. So totally agree. Yeah, absolutely.
Not waiting for the validation. Sorry.
Roua, you've been wanting to add something for a while.
No, it's fine. Of course, I'm not going to add after all this. But I believe also we have a lot of expectation from our talents. And this has put them under so much pressure that we want them to know everything, know how to market their film, know how to write, know how to direct, know how to produce, and also deal with the distributor, and know what the right and what the wrong and everything. I think also we need to be kind of gentle and keen with them a little bit and give them the opportunity and the platform to present what they know exactly, not everything. If I am a writer, I want to present myself as a writer. If I'm a director, I want to present myself as a director. But we are putting so much pressure on our talent because I think we feel like the industry of the films, it's like 100 years before us, and we are just running and running. We want to just follow everything, so we pressure ourselves and them. And I think this is one of the major challenges.
Yes, we have to learn patience. You know, film industry grows slow cooked, and we're all impatient because we're excited about the future, right?
Yes, I agree. We have this passion, of course, but again, we need to just concentrate on what we do so we can do it very good.
Yes, exactly. Let's enjoy it and simmer it.
But I think that's the key. You can't force it. You know, you have to let it evolve and take its course. You can help it, you can guide it, you can be the catalyst for it. But I think trying to force it is dangerous.
Yes, and give it the experience and the maturity that it needs. Anyone would like to add something before we wrap? All good? Thank you so much to all of you for the lovely conversation.